urban legends, ghost stories, folklore, unique history, and whatever makes your town unique. We call them hometown tales because every town has one.
For years, curious teenagers and dumbfounded residents in the Flanders and Long Valley area have been fascinated with a strange phenomenon occurring near the railroad tracks off of Bartley Road. The phenomenon observed by many eyewitnesses for over 50 years, the sighting of a strange light wandering and straying on and around the tracks. It faintly resembles the movements of a person walking with a lantern. This occurrence has been accompanied with the long-lasting legend of the Hookerman, the supposed ghost of a former railroad worker who lost his hand and life on the tracks and wanders them to this day searching for his limb.
Back in the 1800s, there was a railroad worker who had lost life or limb, which is something that was very common back then. It was a very dangerous job. And supposedly, as the story goes, he lost an arm in an accident or was decapitated, and at night his ghost has been known to walk the tracks with his lantern searching for this body part.
The legend stirred so much attention that Conrail, who once owned the abandoned line, recently removed most of the tracks in the frequented area and gated off the premises. Local police also frequently patrolled the suspected area to keep curious onlookers from trespassing and endangering themselves on the track at night. Mount Olive Patrolman Walt Savensky.
All the trains and the train tracks and everything that has to do with that part belongs to New Jersey Transit, Conrail, and if you're going to pursue something and investigate something, the best thing is to get permission first because you are trespassing. We have to enforce the law, and nobody's not allowed in that particular area due to safety.
This is the area that's most commonly associated with the sightings of the Hookerman lights. Now, other areas in the state have often got legends, rumors of mysterious lights along railway areas, even the country for that matter. This area seems to be the one that gets most of the attention.
Local resident Jennifer Talmadge.
I was in high school and went on a date, and it was dark, desolate area. Jim, the guy that I was with, flashed his lights on, turned them off, and then the light mysteriously appeared to the right of the car. It was pretty close. It came on slowly and dimmed out slowly. He did it again, turned the lights on, turned them off, and then the light appeared further down the tracks. And he said he was getting out of the car, and I said, "Are you crazy?" And I made him leave.
Everybody knows somebody who's seen it. I never personally have, but I do know a person who did work for the railroad in the 70s, about the time before the railroad was abandoned, who did actually see it. Actually gave me a very detailed personal account,
This area is now part of the Morris County Parks Commission, and soon it's going to help make up the nearly 50 miles of Patriots Path. Just a little bit behind us, the railway is still there, and actually is still in operation just a little bit past Ledgewood. It's used for cargo even to this day.
At one time, when owned by the Central Railroad of New Jersey, the lines ran throughout most of the northwest part of the state, and local areas such as Andover and Bergen County have their own little legends of the Hookerman.
So who is this Hookerman? Well, there's no indication of anyone being killed on the High Bridge branch line, but records before the early 1900s are pretty hard to come by. And you'd have to believe that in the days of the early railroad, when brakemen were connecting trains manually, losing a finger or even a hand was probably not that uncommon. At the turn of the last century, there was a tragic accident that happened not too far from the High Bridge branch line.
According to yearly reports filed to the state by the railroad, on January 2, 1908, conductor Peter E. Stryker fell from a moving train operating on the Wharton and Northern line while walking over the train cars. Peter fell onto the tracks between two cars and severed his left arm along with other injuries. However, Peter's life was spared from the heroics of his father, Jim, who was also the superintendent. Jim Stryker made record time on taking the train for medical help and returning to heal the ghastly wounds of his son waiting at a nearby home. there's no indication of what was done with his severed limb or even if it were ever found.
That account, reported in Larry Lowenthal's book, Iron Mine Railroads in Northern New Jersey, could be the story that's led to the infamous legend of the Hookerman. Did Peter Stryker's ghost come back to haunt the railway and travel all the way to the High Bridge lines? Or perhaps the lost ghosts of another railroad accident?
We walked the lines of the Hookerman tracks and even took several journeys there at night, and we did see a light on one occasion.
So last night at this very spot is when we first saw something. It wasn't a brakeman's lantern, wasn't headlights.
Of course, what we saw didn't come out very well on tape, and we couldn't actually catch up to the light. These shots were taken over the course of about 20 minutes. We know it's not very convincing on tape, but we did see something resembling the phenomenon. Local authorities have not heard of any Hookerman reports in years.
Not in the last 17 years or so. We do tend to get calls, but nothing in reference to the Hookerman or anything to that nature. It's an old story, and it's a new generation, and I don't think maybe the new generation has been a part of it.
Many people think this ghost is just a bunch of hot air, literally, gas emissions or reflections or even just swamp gas, while others insist that it's paranormal activity. Either way, we still don't have a clear-cut answer on this ghost. So next time you pass by railroad tracks, especially in the Mount Olive area, make sure you look both ways, because you just might see the light of the Hookerman.